Welcome to Chat with Leaders. Our mission is to give resilient servant leaders a platform for sharing the inspiring things they're doing to lead themselves, their teams, and the communities they serve wisely. I'm today's host, Jeff Bond with AppBarry, where we develop custom apps and cloud solutions. Today, I'm incredibly proud to welcome the founder and president of our firm, Joe Barry, to the show. In addition to being the founder and leader of our firm, he's also an AWS certified solutions architect and an incredibly talented software developer. Welcome, Joe.
Glad to be here.
Glad you're here, man. It's so good to be talking to you about leadership. I admire the humility and just the sincerity in your leadership. You care deeply about your team and your firm and the people you serve, and so your quiet and wonderful leadership is definitely worth highlighting. So thank you for your gift of time for being with me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as you know, this show is kind of centered around talking about current day challenges, founding stories, leadership in general. I wanted to jump right in, Joe, and just ask, what are one or two interesting things that people don't know about Joe if they wanted to get to know Joe?
I like gardening. I like vegetable gardening. My old house, I built a huge vegetable garden and an enclosure for it. And I kind of always wanted to kind of just, live on a farm and just be in my own homestead and off grid, which is kind of unique because I love technology so much. So you think I wouldn't want to do that, but I do. I have this draw to just going back to my roots. Probably another one that people always find interesting when it comes up in conversation is that I got bit by a potbelly pig. And
what?
Yeah. And when I was a little kid, I remember I was at my friend's house. He had a pet pig, and we were down looking at something, investigating something, and the pig just comes charging up behind me and bites me right on my arm. It was a fun trip to the doctor to tell him I got bit by a pig. So
that is wild. Yeah, and going back to your off-grid living off the land, you and I have connected on that so much. That's a dream of mine too. If money weren't an issue, right? You could just go and do that, and what a great thing.
Emma and I are looking at buying a house here, and one of the things that we want is just a little bit of land, so I can dabble in that. And I don't want to have a huge farm and do any of that, but I do just enjoy. She wants her bees and chickens, and I want my vegetable garden. I don't know. There's something that's I don't know, when you grow your own food and you can make an eggplant or make peppers and you eat it yourself, there's something rewarding about that I can't quite explain.
Ability to create and to give life to food and sustenance, and to have that re-nourish you. There's just something about that cycle that I think helps connect you to the world in a much more meaningful and even in a spiritual way. I do think that there's a big part of that too. Yeah. Well, awesome, Joe. Thanks for sharing that. I wanted to dive back into your founding story. I always like to ask founders and business leaders, what was the why? What was the why behind launching your own software consultancy here in Atlanta about 6 years ago?
I grew up and my dad had operated a couple different businesses and always had that entrepreneur bug, and I think he passed it on to me. And I was working at another software consulting firm, and some past employers had come to me and asked me to develop them a project on the side. And so I started doing that, and it became quite a large project where I was making a little bit of money from the side job. And I had mentioned to them that I was interested in starting my own business, and they gave me their warnings about it, and but they also said, why don't we help you do that? And they did. And I think part of the why too is I wanted to interface with the customer more. I wanted to own the job a little bit more. And it was 7 years ago on the 24th this month. So I was in my 20s, and the idea of being my own boss, was entertaining to me too. But I quickly realized that's not the case, and you end up with, every one of your customers is kind of like your boss. So, um, I followed kind of my dad's footsteps, and I had two mentors that helped me along the way, and I think we've done all right.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's great to acknowledge that your customers are essentially guiding you as your boss. I mean, that's a true servant leadership statement. And if you're going to be in professional services, if you're going to be part of a consultancy, you have to look at it that way, is that you're there to serve.
Hmm.
And I think it's great that your former employer saw that in you and they were willing to invest and to help you grow your business, which you've done successfully over the years, and really in a more organic way. I only recently joined to make a more concerted sales effort to more intentionally grow it. But you've just grown because you've done a good job, because you're a good
Yeah,
person. You have a good
and
team that you've built.
Brad, I have a great team that I work with too. Very
Yeah.
talented people.
Yep. Yeah, I
Um,
know you would always give that up.
and yeah, we have grown year after year. This year may be a little bit of a question, but again, we're constantly growing, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most about businesses. Every time I move up into a new office, every time I am able to extend our team, those are some of the best moments in operating AppBarry.
Yeah, well, you talked about this year. It's a challenging year in 2020 as we're talking here for all businesses, and many are either closing or just in survival mode. And so I know it's hard to say, what are you most excited about today, or is maybe you feel a little bit of stress. But my next question is, what, are you most excited about today in your business? And talk to me a little bit about your vision for the future.
Yeah, so I think well, one thing I mentioned already, I'm excited about growth, and every time we grow, you know, that feels great. And then another thing, during our downtime right now, we've really taken that opportunity to train, to learn more. I've invested in, getting AWS certifications for all of our employees, and I get really excited about learning still. I mean, I love just watching a YouTube video about machine learning, about big data, about learning things that I just don't know, and staying on the cutting edge of technology. Is just fun to me. Not even technology, but I think also in this field, I get to learn. We've worked with so many industries. We work with photography. We've worked with home warranty, physical security, and so every time I get to dive into a new vertical, and learn how that industry works, that's exciting to me too. So I think I chose the right career field. I get to develop and work with technology, and I get to help others create a solution for their industry, and learn about them. Um, so yeah, growth and learning are kind of the most exciting things
Yep.
in a business for me.
Yep, I love it. Yeah, and as long as you're continuing to move forward and learn new things, I think learning is always a lifelong journey, and so I'm always interested in being around people that have that shared passion of saying, "Hey, I don't have it all figured out, but I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to develop. I want to serve others, and just enjoy the journey." And it is about the journey, not always the destination, as a lot of people will say.
Yeah. I mean, every time I think to myself, I have this all figured out, and I know everything I need to know, I'll work with somebody else, even if it's a new technology partner I'll work with, and I'll learn how much I don't know, and I just step up a new level. So it's just
Yeah.
amazing to me, you know, the talent out there, and how much there is to learn.
Yeah, and the pace of technology is changing, and it certainly has a huge effect on business and how businesses think about innovation and adapting to the times as they move forward. So, what are some of the biggest issues that you've personally seen now for business leaders with respect to their software environment, the strategies that they're putting into place, and how you're supporting that going into the future, or tackling this innovation and change?
Yeah, I think obviously currently with COVID, we're seeing some availability issues in software, and scalability issues in software. So as I said, we're focusing on cloud education and cloud has a lot of offerings that help companies become highly available, highly scalable apps. I think uh, I think think I think that's important for customers. Also, kind of a trend I'm seeing is customers are acquiring, lots of data, and I don't think that they use it as efficiently as they could. And so as we start dabbling in the big data, machine learning, I think other opportunities to be smart about your business will arise and help companies become uh, you know better operating companies and
I
help
agree
their
with that.
customers find better products or serve their customers better.
Yeah, and I feel like data has been one of those issues that just the amount of data that is being collected and ways to make sense of it for businesses is something that has been discussed for several years now, but I still don't think that anyone has quite got a handle on how to wrangle that data and how to make the most sense and turn that into actionable business strategy
Hmm.
and things like that. So it's an ever evolving process. I mean, there's certainly been a lot of innovation in that space with machine learning and so
Absolutely.
forth and data science. But I do think that that's a really interesting area to focus on. So I'm glad that's part of our strategy. Uh, what advice would you have, Joe, if you were to look back, and you kind of alluded to this before, but if you were to look back on when you started the business and you were talking to somebody, an entrepreneur who was looking to maybe launch a startup or a consultancy today, what advice would you have for that person looking back on your story?
um it's a good question. uh it's a lot more work than I thought it was. And you gotta have a strong character. You gotta have there'll be nights that you'll stay up all night thinking about, how am I gonna get this next job to make sure that our company can survive. And or even security wise, there's some sensitive data that you're holding on to, and you're like, oh, did I set that firewall right? Or just things that just keep you up at night, and it weighs on you. But at the same time, there's plenty of times that um, I've been at the top of the roller coaster and celebrating and excited. And so it's a journey, and you go through a wide range of emotions for sure. And it's not for a faint of heart. Entrepreneurs have I don't know. I, I think just warning people what they're getting themselves into. And there's a lot of people who are okay with that and they like that. And I think I made the right choice for the most part.
I think you did too. And that's a very honest reflection. I think it's important. We always talk about how to take care of yourself wisely because you can't lead your teams and your company forward if you're not taking care of yourselves. It's like the old adage of putting the oxygen mask on first on the airplane if it's going down to make sure you can take care of others. And you have to
Right.
sleep. You're human. You have to eat well and exercise and to take care of yourself. And yeah, it's really good advice to other leaders that are getting into it because it is such a high, right? To be able to celebrate the wins and to grow your team and
Hmm.
to have that success be tied to something that you built, but also being mindful of the things that could potentially weigh you down too. So really honest and really helpful advice. Joe, as we're kind of going into the remainder of 2020 here and ahead, this has been such a challenging year. If you were to say there's one thing that you would suggest to leaders or maybe entrepreneurs or small business owners right now that they could focus on to kind of forge ahead faithfully, what would that be?
Just taking a step back and realizing what's important in your business, your people. Um, I think investing in them if you can. Like we are investing in their training, making sure that they're if something does happen, that they're prepared to go out there and they'll be okay. I don't know. I don't know how I would really answer.
Yeah, no, I think stepping back and assessing that's a really good answer and taking care of your people first. I think
Yeah.
that's we've heard that theme commonly on the show with a lot of leaders of this is time to be more empathetic and more humanistic and focusing on what's important and your people are the ones that are going to help you come out of this and then grow exponentially when as things recover.
Yeah. I think just really putting, you know, your place into your customer, your employee. We're putting yourself in their shoes and thinking about how they view what's going on has really helped me. You know, I struggle when I don't understand something or don't understand somebody's point of view. If I really think about, you know, what if I was them and this was happening to me, and I'm scared, you know, like if you put yourself in their shoes, I can become more empathetic, and I see how to help a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I think I've been getting better at that, and especially this year has helped me do that.
Well, that's
I
really
think,
good. Emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and then social awareness too. I think it's important. That's a lifelong development skill. And so that's great advice. We'll certainly share that, and we'll share good ways to get a hold of you, Joe, and learn more about AppBarry on our show notes. I know that you're active on LinkedIn. So is that the best way for people to connect and kind of start a conversation with you?
yeah, I think so. I think
Great. And
LinkedIn,
it's Joseph Barry on LinkedIn, right? Versus Joe Barry.
correct. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll share that, and we'll also be sharing this show as well as the notes and the episode on YouTube very shortly here, and then the audio episode will release on Apple and all the major podcast outlets, where we'll certainly be thankful if you could subscribe and share that with others. You
Sure.
can also email myself, Chris, Tim at info@chatwithleaders.com if you have any suggestions on how we can improve the show. But Joe, it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
I appreciate you having me on, and I enjoyed this conversation. So thank you.